Do you have the little record sign?
It did come up. Yep,
All right. Do you consent to the recording of this podcast
I do.
and the release of this podcast on different platforms?
Yep, wherever you want to put it.
All right, here we go. So, I mean, I know you from the Navy, and Navy always go by last names. So do you want me to call you by your first name? Like,
Yeah, you can call me Charmaine. Everybody else in my life does at this point.
yeah. I bet you that was a trip, right? Once you got out.
It was. It was a lot more difficult looking back and reflecting on my transition back into civilian life.
How many years
It
did you do?
was a lot more difficult than I expected it to be. But I was in for 4. So boot camp, A school, Emory S land.
La Madalena.
Yeah.
Where'd you go once you got out?
I moved back home. My parents had moved from Bucks County up to Carbon County the April before I came home.
What state is that?
So it's Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And so I got home and I was spending my days watching Dawson Creek reruns with the cat.
You're dating
I
yourself.
didn't have a car or anything. Like,
yeah.
and it was a whole new area, and it's pretty remote up there where they are now in the middle of nowhere. So I really didn't have anything to do for a while, but I got on my feet and moved back down to Bucks County to Warrington and started working. And then after a while, I had a friend from the land that he kept being like, Char, I live in San Diego. The weather is perfect.
Yes,
it's 70 degrees almost year round. It's sunny. There's no harsh weather. There's no freezing cold. And you can come out whenever you want. And finally, I was just like, I'm going to take you up on that, okay?
Yeah, it's beautiful out there.
It was. And I was out there for a couple of years. And I worked for Sony Online Entertainment as a game master.
Game master, what's that? I'm not a gamer guy, so I don't know. You have to explain that to me.
So I was customer support in-game customer support for some of the video games. So I had maxed out characters, Fall of Power, and actually
my kids would love you.
I GM'd for Star Wars Galaxies, Swig. And when I was learning, somebody had lost one of their items and I tried to restore it from them, but I accidentally restored the wrong item. So I created a cantina inside of a guy's little house.
Okay.
And you know, do you watch Star Wars at all?
Yeah. Not Star Wars, I know that. Yeah.
It's like a big bar kind of area, right?
Yeah.
And I put it in a tiny little house and it broke the server from I came into work the next day and my manager was like, so you broke a server yesterday, Charmaine. I was like, I'm so sorry. He's like, oh no, you're just now a real game master.
Yeah, you earned your stripes right there, huh? There you go.
But I didn't have to clean up the mess that I made at all. So it was, I felt bad that people couldn't play on that server. But
how does someone get that kind of job? How do they become a game master?
So it's really about location. You just gotta live in an area where the gaming companies are to be able to get the jobs. I know I have a friend still from Sony, and she's working for, I think, Intrepid Studios now, and they're hiring for content creators and stuff like that, but you gotta live, I don't know if it's in Texas.
Location. But don't you have to have a certain kind of talent or degree or something in certain kind of area? Or
to be a game master, it's really just about having good customer service skills.
Okay.
You can learn everything else about being in the game. I mean, they do appreciate when the game masters are gamers because you know more about being able to interact with the players.
Okay, so is this a real-time thing? Like the people who are playing the games, like right now, they could kind of like contact you and you kind of reach out to them?
Right, that is how it is. So you're as the game master, you're physically signed into that game with your character. and you receive tickets and you can go in and jump to wherever they are and do your thing.
So I'm guessing every game has a game master, but I mean that would be a lot of game masters. So you're in charge of multiple games at the same time as they're running,
Right. So
or
everybody works in shifts,
okay,
and they do have rotating shifts, almost kind of like being in the Navy,
yeah,
when you would check in and just sign in to be
it's your
on watch.
watch.
Yeah, it's your watch.
You got the
Um,
balls to four tonight.
yeah, so it was fun, and they were a good company to work for. They did some fun things for the employees every once in a while. Um, and then I ended up going to Chicago to get my photography degree after
Okay.
that.
Was that
And
something you were always interested in? Like, where does that come
I
from?
always wanted to be an artist. I
I got that
didn't know.
vibe from you. Yeah, you just have that kind of
I just
artistic
didn't
vibe.
know. Thanks. Yeah, it was just trying to figure out what kind of art I wanted to do.
Uh,
Um,
but
if
growing up, like what were you into? Like, did you have natural motivations or inclinations
oh no,
toward particular?
I really just wanted to be a rock star,
I could see that.
and everything my whole life was music. I was in choir,
So you
in
sang, okay.
school, and I loved music. I still love music.
Yeah.
It's, no matter what you're going through, you can find something to connect with
Yeah.
and help get you through whatever it is you're feeling.
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing that, people you don't even know, they you're just like, oh, I love this song. And then
Yeah.
it's not even necessarily about the artist. Sometimes it's about other people that share that passion as well. It's just
Yeah.
being into it. Oh, yeah. So
So
I
little
was the girl.
teenage Charmaine, she was like a rocker. What's up? Did you have like the 80s hair and makeup, or what were
You
you
know,
like at that age, like high school age?
high school, 311.
311.
311. I still love 311. If I'm wearing a t-shirt, it's either a 311 t-shirt or a Harry Potter t-shirt. Like that, or it has some like fairy design on it.
Hmm.
Those are all the t-shirts I own.
Yeah, yeah. But like, were you actively pursuing singing or music? I know you say you sang in the choir.
I didn't really pursue it because that seems like the kind of thing that you dream about and you don't pursue. My parents always told me I could be whatever I wanted to be, do whatever I
But
wanted
you
to
didn't
do.
believe them.
But I didn't believe that I could really be a rock star. So
Yeah.
I didn't pursue that. And then there was a time that I wanted to be like Matlock
Matlock. Well, you're really
because I
dating
watched
yourself
a
with
lot
all
of
these
Matlock.
references.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so cool that he was always helping the little guy that couldn't help himself.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, but I don't actually ever think I wanted to be a lawyer. Just the idea of helping people
Yeah,
that can help
exactly.
themselves, I fell in love with. Um, but yeah, I took all the art classes in high school that I could.
Did you excel in a particular brand of art?
I really like drawing a lot.
Mm.
Um, and then when I was trying to figure out career paths, it was like, what can I do with drawing and or painting? I don't want to be a teacher. But
Mm, okay.
that was really the only real thing that I could think of as a career option.
Right.
So I took a lot of time to think about like all these different things because I'm sure there's still types of art that I haven't ever come into contact with to even know it
Yeah.
exists.
Oh, yeah.
It,
Especially nowadays with technology. Forget about it.
right? It's insane. So I originally started when I came home from the Navy, I started for graphic design. And I was
Mhm.
like, I'm gonna be stuck behind a computer.
Not
No,
your
thank you.
bag.
Not, yeah, no, that was the worst. Like I got through the whole first semester because it was drawing, painting, color theory, font, like interesting stuff that I
Yeah,
enjoyed.
yeah.
And the second semester it was like Photoshop, Illustrator. Like I'm like, no, no,
No, no, no.
no, thank you.
Would you say that you're a person that's I don't know how to say it, not physical, but like maybe tactile? Like you like to get your hands on things, like be outside, kind of like with nature.
Yes. Yes, I'm
Okay.
very nature based and I love wildlife. I love plant life.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, looking behind you, yeah, I could see that.
yeah. So these are all things we harvested, found.
Nice.
Um, thank you. Yeah. So I've got stuff just all over the place. I'm all over the place. I'd like to think I'm eclectic.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say that. I think most creative people are. It's rare that you find an artist who's so specific, just into one
Mhm.
little tiny thing. You know what I mean? But usually most artists are pulling from all types of genres, areas of life, and are sometimes kind of like explainers. Or like, look, if you take this and this, you have this new type of
Yeah,
thing or
they
whatever. You know what I mean? Like we're
tell a
just,
story, kind of.
yeah, it's all about, I think, in a way, communication. At if you boil it down, you know what I mean? Because if you draw
Exactly.
something, there's something in there, and it might mean something different to everybody, but it's still something being said or a statement being made. You know what I mean?
I do. I do. It's just like music.
Yeah,
It's just a different way to have that expression that
yeah.
can connect with everybody in some way, whether they like it or they love it. That's a connection that people make.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I have music that I listen like in different moods. There's my angry music, there's my
Mhm.
sad music, my happy music, my romantic music. You know what
Oh yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
There's just everything for
Really
it. And I think
good.
that's with art too. Like it'll stir a certain type of emotion. And as
Mhm.
a consumer of art, I think that's what we're looking for. Like what do I want right now? What do I want to feel? You know, if you think of like what I do a lot of writing. The two biggest, like I would say, for selling as far as profits, romance is number one. A lot of people don't know that because
Wow.
it's not advertised as much as the other genres, but romance sells a lot of books. And I get that a lot of people, you know, they feel lonely or whatever. They just want that little spice in their life, so they read romance. But then there's
Yeah.
thrillers. You know, you just want to feel that rush, that excitement, like being on a roller coaster, being
Yeah.
close to danger, but not actually being burned by the flames. You know what I mean?
I do. I do. I do a lot of reading. I usually have a handful of books that I'm in the middle of at the same time.
I do that.
So
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah, for sure. So, what do you write mostly?
Right now, I would say the thriller suspense type of thing, like a crime fiction.
Okay.
In there, that's the book I wrote, and I'm in the process of revising it right now. But I do have a side project that's more of a action adventure kind of fantasy. Like if you took Indiana Jones and combined them with Doctor Who,
Okay.
it'd be something like that. And instead of like, Doctor Who has a phone booth, this guy has a ship, like
Ah,
a classic, I'd say 1930s ocean liner, gigantic type of ship that could travel through the multiverse.
oh my God, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Sounds
Maybe I'll
like a
let you read
lot.
it a little bit once I
Yeah,
like
I'd love to.
get along with it anymore. But take me to high school. What kind of a high schooler were you? What group? What table did you sit on? What would you say?
I was quiet and really reserved in school.
Uh-oh. Did the Navy
So,
change you?
uh, there was a couple of different factors
Okay.
that played into it. When I was really little, I was very outgoing and thought I made friends pretty easily. But then just a couple of incidents here and there with teachers, with students,
Mm,
I just felt it was better to just kind of keep my head down.
be a little more
And
reserved,
I
right?
had the close group of friends that wasn't real big, and that was really, I didn't really branch out too much from that.
Right. Okay, but something happens along the line where you change, right? And then you decide to go into the Navy. So what happened? What made
Yeah,
you open up?
I feel like I just kind of got more comfortable being myself.
Mhm.
You know, the longer I went through life, and
Yeah.
there are things that you learn and you process, and everything makes up who you are
Yeah.
now. And that's constantly in flux. You're
Right.
constantly changing and growing and evolving based on your prior experiences. And it just got to a point where I stopped feeling like I needed to make sure that the people that I associated with all liked me. Being in the Navy,
Wow.
you know, I was there to do a job. And so I wanted to kick ass at doing that job.
Yeah.
Um, and so when I was on the ship working, I was pretty laser focused.
Yeah. I
Um,
saw that in you too.
I came into a division that was mostly female, and I stood up for myself, and that kind of pissed somebody off. And they tried to turn everybody else against me in the
Oh,
entire division.
geez.
So
Jeez. I
it
thought
was
we are
like
out of
one of
high
the
school. Yeah.
situations. Yeah, it was crazy. And I was just like, I don't need to care. I don't need to worry about it. I just need to make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Um, because I loved what I did. I navigated the ship, and I really enjoyed it quite a bit. Um, Being up on the bridge for the sunrise and the
Yeah.
sunset,
Oh God.
seeing the dolphins.
If anyone's never been there to see that, you have to get on a cruise ship or something to see that. When you're out in
Yeah,
the ocean,
there's
that,
no
yeah,
land
yeah,
anywhere around. And even at night, you just go out on the bridge wing for a minute and look up, and
the
you can't
stars. Yeah.
believe how many stars you see without all of the light pollution of the land. And it was amazing. And a, I was good at what I did. I was confident, and that got me the respect of the people that I wanted to respect me. And it made some people kind of jealous, obviously, because
There's always haters. Yeah.
I didn't need to suck up to anybody to get
Yeah.
by.
So I
Um,
want to get into that a little bit. Allow me to do that. There's a quote that I remember. I think Gore Vidal said it. He said something like, "It matters more what you think of yourself than what others think of you." And that's a thing that I think I've kind of wrestled with that, like identity, like who is self. Like we're always, um, we have this idea of who we want to be, who do we
right.
feel that we are, and then there's a something being projected upon ourselves, which is how other people are trying to say we are. And I think as for a person growing up, if I remember my young days, like that projection on me, I struggled with that a lot because I was a light-skinned kid who was actually Puerto Rican in an all-black neighborhood. You know what I mean? So I was always kind of like who I am, and then pressures
Right.
like from my
Yeah.
family and stuff, and trying to figure that out. I think that's amazing that you, at such a young age, you had a moment where you kind of repressed. I said, okay, I'm gonna, dial it down. But at a certain point, you said, I don't care what these people say. And I try to tell people that, like the quote that I'm talking about, like it's not that other people don't count, it don't matter, but you matter more.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, so don't
Yeah.
always put other
I think
people ahead of yourself, is what I'm saying.
I think what people are afraid of is if I take care of myself and my wants and needs and desires, I'm being selfish.
As a female, I'm not trying to get
I feel like
sexist, but I think females deal with that more than men, where men are like,
I, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, but I just like that's the feeling that I get from others. Like they're
mhm,
afraid to take care of themselves and do the things that they need to do so that they can be happy because they
right.
don't want to look selfish to other
Right.
people.
And it's a balance, is what I'm saying. It's a tricky balance because you can't be
Sure.
all about yourself, but you can't be all about other people. Either way, you're not happy. So you find that balance. But in my mind, the scale is tipped more towards the self. It doesn't have to be a lot. It could just be 51% or whatever. But you do need to take care of yourself first, I feel.
Yes. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to even be around
That's true.
at
Yeah.
some point, like you said, if you're not getting the sleep so that your body can heal and recover and grow and
Right.
it takes care of sleep actually does a lot for your mental well-being as well as your physical well-being. So if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not doing little things, even if it's just 5 minutes that you can squeeze out of a day,
Yeah.
you'll feel so much better.
Yeah. And I think that if you really work on the self and that identity of you, that self is strong and that's projected to other people, that actually helps society because I feel that people now understand who you are better and how to work with you. Does that make any sense? Because I think a lot of times
It
we
does.
feel
Yeah, to a
confused. We
degree.
feel like people don't understand who we are. I know
Mhm.
I've felt that a lot. Like I'm trying to express myself in certain ways. People don't get exactly what I'm saying. I think that might be part of
Yeah.
it. Like, are you projecting, you know, an accurate picture of who you are? I might be getting way
And,
too deep. I don't know.
yeah. Oh no, you're fine. It's 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 an experience.
Yeah.
It's a self-awareness that you have to learn and grow into,
Mhm.
because I know when I was younger, my thought patterns and behaviors were so far different
Mhm.
from where I am now. And I feel like I was selfish when I was young. I not to a degree that I didn't care about others or that I
Right.
didn't do nice things for the people I cared about, but to the point that I wanted to have a good time.
Mhm.
If I wasn't working, what can I do now that I'm off duty so that I can enjoy the rest of my day? And I didn't really think about the consequences of how that affected other people
Right.
sometimes.
Right.
But I feel like, well, that might just be an adolescent thing. I mean, I know it's not everybody, not
Right.
everybody's
Right. In
like that.
general, right.
But in general, on average, I think that that's adolescence.
Uh-huh.
We're out of our parents' home. We don't have to make sure we're making them happy so that we're not getting in trouble anymore. And so the world of possibilities is completely open,
Mhm.
especially when you're overseas in the
Oh,
military. Like, there's so many new experiences to be had. And yeah, it's like being a kid in a candy store or sitting down on Christmas morning in front of the Christmas tree with
yeah.
all of the presents, or it's that you're passionate about just doing it all and having as much fun as you can.
Yeah.
And then as you get older, it's more aligning yourself with the responsibilities of maintaining your life.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to have a job that will help to pay my bills. What is it that I can do that I'm actually going to enjoy doing? Because now I see so many people are struggling through a 9 to 5 job that they hate and they're
Yeah.
afraid to quit because how will they pay their bills? Well,
Exactly.
it's a little step at a time to work towards actual goals to build your life so that you can be happy when you're working and you don't feel like you're working. And
Exactly. I think that's the key. I think that people have power to construct the world that they're living in, but they don't know
mhm,
that. I always tell people who I talk to who have like a lot of issues about their childhood, who their families are, kind of things that happen to them. And I say to them, look, when you're a kid, and you kind of hinted towards that you're stuck in the situation you are. And
yeah,
I'm sorry. That's just what the reality of it. But as you mature and you're an adult, now you can live outside, that you could feed yourself, you could pay your own bills. You can't keep going back and saying, well, this is the situation I am. Like, no, like you could change your situation now. I think a lot of people don't see that way. I don't know if it's some sort of negative learned behavior, but if you don't like the job that you are, you can get a different job. You know what I mean? If you
exactly.
don't like the friends you have, you can get different friends. You know what I mean? We
Yeah,
have that freedom. You may not get to pick the any job you want or any type of friends, but you have the ability to change it. You can make an effect on
mhm,
the world that you're living in.
yes. And I think people just get comfortable with the familiar,
Yeah.
and the thought of doing a major change is just too uncomfortable or
Yeah.
scary for a lot of people. But I really try to just be a source of like, you can do it, you got it. Like, if you can picture it, eventually you can have it. It's not going to happen overnight, but you can build the life that you're dreaming about, and you can really have that happiness. You just have to want it bad enough to put the effort in every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. So let's go back. So you're in the Army. I liked what you were saying about when you got out. So you got out, you were trying to kind of like sitting around at home. So you kind of did what you're saying, which is like, okay, this isn't working out for me. I'm going to go try things. And you went out to San Diego, and then you went to Chicago, which I love. Both those places I love. Where do you go after that, after Chicago?
So after Chicago, I came back to Pennsylvania. I had a niece that when I visited, she was afraid of me.
Oh.
And I was getting ready to have a nephew. So I said that, I need to be a better part of these kids' lives. It's my niece and nephew. I want to be there for them. So I moved back to Pennsylvania, which at first was back in with my parents in Lehighton, Carbon County. And as soon as I could, I moved closer to where I was working. And I started dating my now husband, who was actually, we were friends. Thank you. We were friends since junior year of high school.
Wow.
But yeah, so that was, I love our story. But anyway, so we moved in together, and we've been inseparable ever since. And I was working a seasonal position as a photographer, doing senior portraits for colleges and high schools. And I got burned out pretty quick doing that, because you travel, you use your own vehicle, all their equipment, and it doesn't pay that great. I've had jobs where I made a lot of money, and when I was no longer at that position, I wasn't even upset, because I didn't realize how stressed out I was.
Wow.
And then I took a $10 an hour job, to try to do something that I thought I would love. And it really just turned out not to be for me. And John, my husband, he has been working in stained glass for over 20 years. He was working as an independent artist. So he was getting work through other studios at the time that were local. And so I said, because I had been going to school and working on my business management degree, I was just like, why don't we just work together? Why don't we start our own business?
Okay.
I'm in my off season right now over the holidays. I can just not go back. And, I have my pay for the off season, and I can work towards building us a business. And so that's what we did. And
How long ago was that?
So that was 2018 we started. Okay. So we're in our 4th year this year as Bucks County Stained Glass. 2019 started out really great. We were getting jobs. People were calling and emailing saying that, they found my website or the social media, and they loved our work.
You were gaining traction. You're starting to go.
Yes, we were getting some traction and momentum, and we were no longer trying to beg for jobs from a couple of the other local studios here and there anymore. Like, we didn't need it anymore. We were getting our own jobs as us, and these other studios, every once in a while, they'd be like, hey, I want you to do this. And it was just like, okay, we'll be able to get to it in like 3 months. And they were going, wait, what? You don't want my work? I'm like, no, we got our own work. I was like, yes, we're on the map.
Nice. That must have been a great feeling.
So it is a great feeling. And it's just, it's picking back up again from last year's state shutdowns. Like, that was scary for us. The phone didn't ring for 4 months. And it was like, oh my God. What are we gonna do? Like,
yeah.
But we're busy again. We have a lot of projects that we're working on, and it's just phenomenal that we work together and we enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it gives us the flexibility to have the lifestyle that we want. Um, so it's great because I've got the parrots and we got chickens and it just I'm all over the place. Like it's very eclectic
Yes, you
um,
are.
in the things that I do, and it's just been a great journey.
Yeah. Do you have any like spirituality? Are you into?
So I am a pagan, and it's a long story about how I stumbled onto it and
Hmm.
thought I was Wiccan for a long time, which is a type of pagan
Hmm.
um, practice. It's just very rigid, and I'm too eclectic.
Okay.
So it really was all about growing up in a house where my parents, they had both been forced into church. My dad was raised as a Catholic, my mom was raised as a Christian,
Mm.
and they hated being forced to go to church and do all of the religious stuff growing up. So they told my brother and I that we were free to choose our own religion. And so I used to go on the bus with my friends to their churches, and it got to a point where I just felt like I was being brainwashed. As a
Yeah,
kid,
I
go
felt
to
the
something
same way.
and it's repeat, memorize, and you will be rewarded. And as a young teenager, I was just like, this doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Um,
But did you ever
so
feel any kind of connection to it? Did you ever get any sense of the Christianity
I
for you? I mean, I don't know.
I really tried
Hmm.
to. I even thought that I would every Sunday, instead of going to church, I would read the Bible on my own. But
Mm.
what 10-year-old really can stick to like
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to read this part of the Bible on this day, and it just doesn't. But
So never really a connection between
yeah, well,
Christianity
what
and you.
happened? It was the opposite of a connection for me.
Mm.
Um, my grandmother was living in Williamsport, and after Easter that one year, I guess I was like 13 or 14 at the time, there was huge flooding, flash flooding, because that Easter was a huge snowstorm.
Hmm.
And so there was still huge mounds of ice
Hmm.
from the snow plows, and the ground was still frozen. It hadn't thawed. And then there was this huge rain, and there was flash flooding. And her and my aunt and one of my cousins were there, and they were on top of a vehicle trying to wait to be rescued by a helicopter. And my grandmother, holding their dog, she fell off into the floodwaters, and she was missing for a while. And I prayed every day, and I felt like everybody else in my family gave up hope, and I was the only one that was still holding on to the fact that no, she could be in a hospital somewhere, and she wasn't. She passed away.
Oh, okay.
They found her frozen body still holding the dog, who
Oh,
had
so
also
sad.
passed. And at that point, I was so angry that I decided it would be better for me to not believe in God than to hate him,
Right.
because to believe in God and to hate him felt like worse of a crime to me at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started to explore and research other religions of the world. Um, but yeah, I went to Christian, Baptist, Catholic. Um, I looked at
Buddhist.
Buddhism and Judaism. And when I found Wicca in high school, um, that seemed natural to me.
Okay. How so?
It,
Explain that.
it pagans, whatever branch you
Hmm.
choose to follow, um, what you're doing is you're rejoicing in the changing of the seasons and the cycles of life and death. and you're just focusing your intent and your energies on creating positive situations. So for me, I believe that there is a feminine and a masculine, and you can speak to whatever aspect you want to speak to, and it's the same divine being in the end. So I often pray and I speak to the goddess, because to pray and speak to the God is still it hits a little too close to the Christian sounding God to me, and that still kind of stings a little bit. But I love the moon, I love the sun, I love everything that nature has to offer in all of its abundance. And I've been able to become a calmer person and be more
at peace.
I'm so much more at peace, for sure, but diligent with
diligent.
my interactions with people and how I express myself. And I've been able to build my whole life kind of on the foundations of my faith. So we're coming up to what everybody refers to as Halloween. On my calendar, it's called Samhain, and it's a day for honoring our ancestors.
Those who had passed away?
Yes.
Okay,
So
that's really big in Latin culture too. Dia de la Muerte or Todos los Santos Day, yeah.
There's a lot of cultures that have very similar practices for a lot of the different holidays that I celebrate. And it's nice because it makes sense that every culture should have something similar, but we all celebrate it in a little bit of a different way because we're from different areas of the world.
Right.
And so I make everything I can from scratch. I make all of our soaps.
Wow.
And I make all of my skincare products.
You sound like a hippie.
Bread from scratch. That's what John said. Yo, my goodness.
Are you barefoot right now or what?
I'm actually not. I still have sneakers. There was a couple of things that are really positive happened lately. And I was like, you know what, John? I started saying this new mantra every day, a couple times a day. Do you want to hear it? And he was like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, I say to myself, I am open to receiving abundance and positivity. And he goes, you sound like a hippie. I said, no, I'm a witch.
Okay, so I was going to say, like Wicca, like as soon as I hear that, and I think a lot of the people think of witches. You just said you think you're a witch. Is that how you identify yourself, or?
So I identify as a kitchen/cottage witch.
Gotta explain that. I don't know what that is.
My focus is very home-based. Everything I do a lot in the kitchen and around the home. I'm building a homestead. So like I said, everything is as natural as I can make it, from the foods to the things that we use around the house.
So what is it though? Why do you have to do that? Do you feel that like, okay, it has to be, I make it, or it has to be natural?
So when we started rescuing, all three of our birds were second owners. A couple of them came from really bad situations, and Smokey is actually his original owner, loved him to death, but she passed away from cancer. But a lot of people with birds, they don't really educate themselves really to make them fully aware of the type of exercise and diets that they need to be happy, healthy, because with birds, I know that other animals and pets are the same, but mental stimulation and interaction with their flock, and as humans that own the birds, we're part of their flock. They really can have bad mental health issues. as well as, if you give them the wrong foods, they can get sick and die.
Psychological and biological. Yeah. Just like
Yeah,
humans. Yeah. Yeah. And social.
yes, it's like if I do not interact with Smokey or at least be around him um, for a few hours a day,
Mhm.
he could get depressed and he could start ripping out feathers.
Oh, yeah. I've
And
seen that.
ripping
Yeah.
out feathers becomes a bad habit, just like when people bite their nails or smoke
Right.
cigarettes. It's hard to
Yeah.
stop even after the root cause has been addressed. So they also have very delicate breathing systems. They hold their breath in their bodies twice as long as we do.
Wow.
And their bodies are so much smaller. So anything toxic that they breathe in, it's in their bodies for twice as long. And their bodies are
Mm.
so tiny, they can't handle it. And,
Can't cleanse the way we do.
like we can drink caffeine,
Uh-huh.
which technically is a toxin,
Okay.
but it gives us a buzz of
Uh-huh.
energy. But our bodies are fighting whatever it is that
Hmm.
isn't good in that, and that's what's creating that caffeine high,
Yeah.
where you're like, but
Jitters.
birds, to give them something equivalent in the sense of that being bad for them, it's just their bodies have no way to handle it
It's
before it
far
kills
worse for
them.
them.
So I had to change over all of my cookware. You can't cook with any non-stick coating
Mm.
cookwares at
It's
all
toxic.
because
Okay.
these things leach into the air and that could kill them so fast. And
Okay.
it's like, well, if it's that bad for them, is it really that great for me
Yeah.
anyway?
Yeah.
So
True.
there's a lot of things that it got me thinking about. And so there are like you can't use Febreze in your home with a bird. I can't use an oil diffuser. I don't even like candles if I don't have to.
Scented candles or just regular candles.
Right. So I only buy unscented. That way,
Okay.
if the power does go out, I'll
Right.
light those. Yeah, no scented candles. So I had to think about, well, what is it that I'm using in my house that if I don't stop using could potentially kill them if I accidentally don't take the proper precautions? And I just cut it all out. And then I went overboard. Um, but I've always been interested in making soap. My mom used to take us, we used to volunteer, my brother and I and my mom. It was always a Mother's Day weekend at the folk festival,
Mhm.
um, where we grew up. And there were always people there selling their handmade soaps. And I always thought it was so cool and
Mhm.
just like, wow, like like who makes soap? Well, I make soap now. So
Yeah.
but I studied it for 3 years before I made my first loaf of soap. Um, and then John had a lot of issues, dietary issues, that he
Mm.
just always had some sort of indigestion or
Yeah.
whatever. And so I was like, all right, what can we do to help with this?
Right.
And I had horrible sinus problems. So I was like, well, I'm cutting out dairy
Mhm.
because that's going to help my sinuses.
Right.
And that's how we found out that he is highly lactose intolerant.
Wow. I didn't even know it.
And he didn't even know it. And he's like, oh, it makes so much sense. Because when I was young, my mom would always make me drink a glass of milk and then I would dinner and I'd always feel sick after dinner.
Yeah.
But it's just like little things you don't think about. So we're now dairy free and gluten free in my home. So I just do most of the cooking. I cook typically 2 meals a day, not every single day, all
Uh-huh.
of the time. I do
Right.
have nights or days off where we don't cook, but like today's date night. It's Friday,
Hey.
so we're gonna order out. But yeah, no, I have 3 baskets of eggs from my chickens sitting on my table right
Wow.
now.
Fresh eggs.
Yeah, and we just don't go through them fast enough anymore. When we first got chickens, we were eating like 7 eggs a day between the two of us for breakfast. And now it's like now we're kind of mixing it up, and sometimes I have a sourdough culture that I started, so I'll
Mhm.
make pancakes and sausage or whatever. So yeah, it's like, oh my goodness, like we can't get rid of these eggs fast enough. I just gave my mom a flat of 18 eggs, and I'm like, I'll bring you more next week.
Do you try selling them? Maybe you could do that.
Eggs.
Yeah, hold up. Do you try selling the eggs at all, or?
I do on occasion. Our location isn't
Kind of
super
rural area?
conducive to putting something up on the road.
Yeah.
But I mean, we could get a cooler and put it out with like the honor system. And I know a lot of people do that. Um, I just don't want to spend the money to go buy a cooler specifically to put eggs in.
Yeah.
Like I could do something else with that. Like I don't know. So I'm thinking about there are ways to preserve them over the winter because chickens naturally stop laying eggs when there isn't enough daylight in the day.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So as the days get shorter, their bodies start to adjust, and then the temperature starts to go down as well. Ideal like you will get the most amount of eggs from your chickens between 40 and 80 degrees. If it gets colder than that or hotter than that, they'll stop laying.
Okay.
Or they'll slow down laying. So that in conjunction with not having as much daylight in the day, they stop laying over the winter. And it's a natural break for their bodies. But I know that the people that produce eggs to give to supermarkets, those kind of chicken farm kind of places, and there are a couple of backyard chicken people that do it as well, will put lights and heaters in their coops and force the hens to continue to lay. But we want to give them their best life. They're livestock. Like, I'm not taking them to the vet if they get sick. It's a livestock animal. I'm not allowed to get attached. We only name them after food.
Right.
So we want them to have the best life that they can naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So they run around the whole property all day, getting plants and insects, and they love it. And they get their chicken feed and their scratch and fresh water. But we're not gonna force them to lay through the winter. So I'm gonna try to this year save some of the eggs, preserve them. There's a couple of different methods that you can use so that you have them for the winter.
So anyone tuning in right now will listen to you and be like, wow, she's such a hippie, so granola and stuff like that. But I mean, you served in the military, so you kind of have like that badass streak too. Like, how do people reconcile that when they meet you?
It's weird because it's not, being a veteran isn't something that I just like upon meeting somebody, like, oh yeah, I was in the Navy, and if I really need to, I can kick your ass, so don't mess with me. But so by the time people are like, oh wait, you were in the military? I had no idea. Yeah. And every once in a while I get the, no, you're too young to
well, that feels good.
Like, oh, thank you. But yeah, it is something that usually throws people for a loop.
Yeah. What about yourself though? I mean, because I think that there's a kind of like the yin and yang or duality that everybody has, or even how you use when you're talking about your religion with the feminine and the male, but you're still kind of like talking to like one thing, but it's different things. You understand what I'm saying? So I think that in a way, a lot of people who are eclectic like you, but you present more on one side, but it doesn't mean that you don't have this other side. And I think that society, right, exactly, always, you understand what I'm saying? Like always trying to, I guess, label us and put us in boxes and say, well, you could only be this one thing.
Right. And I think that's where a lot of people have their hangups, is feeling like they are in a box or that they have to identify a certain way. And I just really don't care.
I think that's healthy.
I try to get my husband to think more like me in that regard, because he tends to have that anxiety where he overthinks and overthinks and overthinks. And I find it endearing because it's not a crippling situation to where he can't function and be around people or out in society. But it's having the self-awareness to just know that you're not going to please everybody. There's no way to do it.
No. No.
Some people are going to love you. Some people are going to hate you. And you're not going to, some people that hate you, you know exactly why they hate you. But other people that don't
You
like
don't
you,
even know why.
it's just, don't
Yeah.
even worry about it because you're never going to figure it out. And you just
So
have to be okay with not understanding sometimes.
yeah, that's true. I still struggle with that. But okay,
It can
so
be difficult.
yeah, I think that, I always tell people that I think women have it way harder than men. And part of the reason is because with the ascendance of women, because women are finally, coming up to the top, that in a way they've been told a lie, which is you have to be the great wife and mother and stuff like that, or you have to be a good career woman. Like you can't be great at both. I mean, because a great
But you could.
I don't see how I don't see how you
I
put
know
in
exactly what you're
18
saying.
hours a day at work and your kids know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I know a lot of women who are married who have kids struggle with that a lot.
Yeah.
It's sort of like not only that, like it's not only do you have to be this pure virgin type of thing, but once the door closed behind the bed, oh, I want you to be as freaky. You're saying there's a direct conflict that I think is unique and particular to the female experience today that men don't really. I mean, we have our own problems. I'm not saying that it's easy
Right.
being a man, but for women, like, how do you reconcile with those sort of push and pull that women are having?
It's very catty. It's no matter what age I get to, there's always girls that just, I don't know, they just want to be angry or they need to argue about something.
Yeah, I think you're. I think people need something, and sometimes it's
There's,
negativity.
there's something, and I do think that a lot of it is because of societal norms.
Yes.
I keep seeing people talking about how, well, we need to normalize this because of this. And I'm like, I don't know why you care about that. I
Right.
just do your thing. I've never felt that society looked down on me because I've chosen not to have kids.
Right.
That's never been, yeah, people sometimes want to question it because they just want to understand. And I think
Right.
a lot of the mental gymnastics that happen is because we get so self-defensive about our situation that maybe we're not being empathetic to how others are just really trying to understand your perspective. They're not necessarily trying to attack you, or maybe somebody in your life isn't stoked about something for you. In your head, you're thinking they're not stoked or supportive, but really they love you so much and they have questions because they don't want you to fail. Like you just have to shift a tiny bit and think about, well, I know this person or I don't know this person. So are they trying to just look out for me, or are they trying to just understand my reasoning because we don't know each other? Or even sometimes you do, like, yeah, my parents were disappointed that I wasn't going to give them grandchildren, but they understand at the same time that I don't want to have my own kids. Right. They can still be disappointed that they're not going to have
okay, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Being okay with people being disappointed. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And it's just something that everybody, you have to work through your own feelings, whether you're happy, sad, disappointed, angry. It's cool. Like, you can feel however you feel. You can't not express yourself or expect other people to not express themselves because you think that you don't deserve to hear it.
Right. Okay, let me ask you a few more questions. We're coming towards the end. I want to try to keep it under an hour, but I don't know if we will. But so with those pressures directly yourself, have you felt anyone or any kind of social pressure where because of you're a woman or the way that you look, they were like, okay, you can't do mechanical things or mathematics or even like the military? Did you get any feedback or any push on that?
It's really just the competitiveness of the other females
Mm-hmm.
that you have to associate with at a particular job.
Mm-hmm.
I never really had any issue with the guys.
The guys didn't
Um,
seem to care.
no, and it was like I could relax and bullshit and do my job. And no matter where I was working, that was always the case. If anybody takes the time to learn and be efficient and effective
Mm-hmm.
at their job, that's what you need to focus on.
Yeah.
All of the surrounding background stuff is just noise. And you can either choose to become a part of it and promote a healthy environment for yourself or not. And there were times where other women were, just because I was younger in the office, or but there's also been times where I proved myself, and then all of
Right.
a sudden they looked up to me and
Right.
allowed me to help them.
Yeah.
It's really all about the way you want to have your perspective be.
Yeah.
And
It
as
sounds
soon
like to
as
me that you're saying that you set sort of a boundary, like, hey, this is who I am, and I'm not necessarily going to change, but like we don't have to be competitive at the same
right,
time.
exactly. We don't have to be competitive. We can work together. We don't have to like each other, and we
Right.
can work together because your work is your profession and you should remain professional.
Mm-hmm.
And then whatever you want to do outside of work, if you want to go shoot some hoops or throw some punches, like it shouldn't affect the work
Right.
environment. And too many people get caught up in the work environment.
Uh-huh.
I mean, my mom does. She's always about, she wants the people to like her. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes she just butts heads with people, and it she dwells on it.
Yeah.
That's the best word I can think of. People like to dwell on it.
Yeah.
But
They live in that space, and it's not a healthy space.
yeah.
Yeah.
So venting, having somebody to vent to, definitely a major bonus.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes John lets me vent on occasion, and sometimes he's like, if you wanna cry and bitch to somebody, just call your mom. I'm like, okay.
Talk to the birds.
Yeah. So, but there's a lot of workplace situations that start out very tense, and you don't have to keep it that way. You can make the decision to say, okay, I'm going to focus on doing the best job that I can, and then we'll see the way the surrounding areas react.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't make a quick snap judgment on something like that. But in general, I think that for most people, I don't know what the number is, but I'll say as high as 90%, that their work, for one reason or another, is not a healthy place. Maybe you work in a job that's dangerous, you deal with chemicals or explosives or whatever, or the people you work with are toxic. There's a lot of work that is just horrible. Yeah. And or you're just doing something that sucks your soul, that you just hate it. It doesn't align with your views, your morals, your ethics, or whatever. For a lot of people, just the ability to live, to survive in our society, our modern day society, which is, have health care, afford to pay for food and shelter and stuff like that. Just the act of doing that is having a huge negative effect on people.
It does. And that's where you got to really think about, what kind of life do I want to build for myself? Because it's never too late to rebuild your life. If you find that you're in that kind of a position where it's just soul draining and you're super unhappy because what you do doesn't align with, like you said, your beliefs and your morals and your values, then you start visualizing, okay, what can I change?
Mm-hmm.
How can I get out of this job and into a job that suits me better, and start to make those steps every day.
I think an issue with that, though, is that people, maybe because of society or family pressures, will choose money
Mm,
over like happiness. You know, you
it's
could
never
make
money's
far
never
less
worth it,
money, but
though.
be a lot happier. And people would be like, oh no, that's dumb, dude. You missed out on all this money you could have been making.
Yeah, no. I've been there. I've had the jobs making the big bucks, and it was never worth it in the end.
Yeah.
Afterwards, I was always so much happier, even though maybe I made 50% less
Yeah.
than
But you
what
know
I
what?
was making.
I tell people, and I just recently discovered this, because the most valuable asset you have is time,
It
and
is.
you don't get that back. So
Mm,
you spent 20, 30, 40 years on a job that you hate and you made all this money. Those last 20 years of your life, or 10 years on retirement, aren't going to make up for it. It's just not.
and are you going to be around long enough to utilize all that money you just spent
Or
all
enjoy
the
life. You're
time you
so old at that point and probably set in your ways too, like we were saying before. Like, how are you just going to change? Because I think people really need to learn how to be happy. It's not just
Yes.
natural thing. I think with
We
kids,
don't.
kids follow their impulses. That's different than
Mhm.
learning how to be happy in a civilized society. You know, that's just the ego or the id. But to
Yeah,
mature and learn how to interact with people and be a part of society and still be happy, that's a tricky thing.
it is. And it took me into my 30s to really understand what it was that I wanted for myself and to start working at building that happiness
Do you think
and
having your
learning.
own business is part of that? Being
I know
self-employed?
that right now it is a big part of it. I can't imagine not having my own business anymore. Um, it's it's been very liberating. It's not for everybody. Um, and my brother and his wife, they're like, yeah, we have conversations about you and John and how you have your business and run your own business. And yeah, no, we can't do that.
Some
But
people
we're glad
can.
that it works for
Yeah.
you guys.
Yeah.
So
So we're about to get, I'm going to retire in a few years, like 2 years, maybe 2.5.
that's
And
so exciting.
we're thinking about starting something up. Not 100% sure exactly what. We have some ideas, but yeah, I mean, I'm doing this, I'm writing, so who knows?
I really want to read your book when you're done.
Okay, maybe I'll send you
Um,
some stuff,
that'd be
little
awesome.
samples.
And yeah, dude, explore all of those options,
Yeah.
every single one, until one is just like, oh, because you know when it's right.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks again for having me. It's been fun.